mind thing is you have to win.
Ill intent, violence, physicality, pain. Enough is enough.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Just Win podcast. We are live after the Raiders lost to the Bengals 41-24. That's Tashan Reed. That's Vic Tafer. They were both at the game enjoying, or maybe not enjoying, a bad day at the office, as Antonio Pierce called it. Yeah, this one looked like it got away from them early. What was the mood in the locker room like after?
Not good. Not positive. I think, it's kind of, we talked about kind of like a broken record where, first drive, they marched down the field, they score, and that's pretty much it. That's all she wrote. And the defense today had nothing really to offer against Joe Burrow. So it was the final score is a little misleading. It wasn't that close.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds rough to say about a 17-point loss, but yeah, it could have been much worse than that and probably should have been if the Bengals were still trying in the fourth quarter. But yeah, it was pretty solemn in the locker room as you would expect after any loss, but especially your fifth one in a row. It's probably the lowest I've seen Max Crosby, I would say, is the last couple of weeks. He usually, even after losses, has something loquacious to say or, rah-rah kind of inspirational. And the last couple of weeks has just been he seems sad. He was talking to defensive line coach Robbie Leonard for a while before he talked to the media. And yeah, it's just, I mean, they're not in a good place. I mean, you never are when you lose as many games in a row. I mean, it's the second longest losing streak in the league right now behind, old friend Derek Carr and the Saints, who've lost 7 in a row. But, I mean, the season's pretty much over. I know they're at 2-7. Technically, they're not eliminated from anything, but they might as well be. They would have to basically run the table to be in the running for anything towards the end of the season. And I think we're all pretty confident that's not happening. And so it's kind of a tricky spot to be in when you know your season's over before your bye week even gets there.
I think Max said, what he said, losing 5 in a row sucks. That was a quote, I think.
Fucking sucks.
Fucking sucks. I apologize.
Yeah.
I started cleaning up for the family and kids out there, but sorry, kids. It fucking sucks to lose 5 in a row.
Yeah, well, it seems like every Raider game follows a very similar script. Like the offense looks pretty good in the beginning when the plays are scripted. Usually the first 15 are scripted, and then after the first 15, they fall off. They make some boneheaded decisions at the end of half, and then the defense sorts of lets go of the rope eventually, and then the score looks pretty bad. But in this game, I think things got out of hand a lot faster than normal. And where the game really took a turn was before halftime. The Bengals were able to score a touchdown. They would get the ball first in the second half. They got the ball first. So they went up 7 points. They got the ball in the second half. They scored again. And then the Raiders tried some weird play where Madison was going out of motion and back into the backfield to get the handoff. Didn't look like it had a chance, even if he got the handoff. Fumbled it.
That was DJ Turner on that one.
What was that?
That was DJ Turner on the.
Oh, sorry. That was DJ
reverse.
Turner, who fumbled the handoff. Not used to getting that many handoffs, but fumbled it away. And then the Bengals scored another touchdown off of that turnover, and the game was pretty much over at that point.
I guess they gave the fumble to Gardner. I guess it was a high handoff. So Gardner Minshew had the fumble, so now he's got a league high 12 turnovers on the year. So now like one of the last straws for Antonio Pierce because he's preaching no turnovers. So they made the switch in the third quarter.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of funny you say opening script. Luke Getsy got mad at the media earlier this week for saying opening script. Apparently, that's something we created. It doesn't actually exist.
Didn't exist.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's like 5 of the last 6 games or something. Jimmy Durkin tweeted it out, but they've had like a long touchdown drive to start the game, like basically every week during this losing streak, except for one, and it just completely falls off a cliff after that. And so I don't really know the rhyme or reason behind that. If they just suddenly stop running the plays that were running from them earlier, or if defenses just adjust and they don't have counters to those adjustments, but. Another big factor I think for the offense in this one was they got hit up pretty hard by injuries. Colton Miller went down pretty early due to an ankle injury. He had a boot on after the game. Then backup left tackle Andrews Pete went down due to an ankle injury. Then left guard Cody Whitehair, who was already coming off the bench for somebody else, went down with an ankle injury. And so the offensive line just kind of went to shit after that. I mean, they haven't been able to run the ball all year, but especially with that going on, the pass game was kind of cooked. They started getting pressured pretty often as well. And so, um, I think it was a mix of, we've talked about the coaching mistakes ad nauseum, whether it's Antonio Pierce's game management or it's Luke Getsy's play calling, but it's also this roster just isn't good. Like it's a bad roster. And I think, before the season, they were probably in a place where you could say maybe they could be competitive when you're looking at the team, but this wasn't a roster that was built for depth. Like they don't have much depth and they've sustained a lot of injuries. I mean, even coming into this week, they had a lot and then they lost 5 players today due to ankle injuries because of, I guess, the turf at the Bengals field is just awful or something. And so this, few teams can sustain that many injuries, but especially not a team that's good. And so, or this bad, I should say. And, a mix of bad coaching and a bad roster, this is what you get.
The O-line was actually down to their last 5 guys because of all the injuries. So if they had gotten somebody else hurt, I'm not sure what they would have done because I would say normally my guess would be Harrison Bryant, but he also left the game with an ankle injury. So they really, I don't think they had any plan if somebody else went down in that game. And thankfully it didn't happen. But yeah, it definitely wasn't. We look at the lack of success on offense the last 5 games, but obviously losing all those guys up front doesn't help anything. So I think that's part of the equation today. And you mentioned that stat where it's kind of crazy. I got the full breakdown. So it's 4 of the last 5 games, they've scored a touchdown on their first possession. And then in the other 50 possessions in those 5 games, they have 4 touchdowns total.
Jesus Christ.
And they've all come in garbage time. They've all come with 5 minutes or less left in the game, down 14 or more points. So they've only scored 4 in the first drive, 4 at the last drive in garbage time, and nothing in between on 46 other possessions in 5 games.
So was Getsy mad because he was rejecting the concept that he script plays? Is he saying he doesn't script plays?
His point was you can't really script like there's a penalty and you get pushed back and like things happen in the first 15 plays where it's not really scripted was his point, which I guess to some extent makes sense, but there is definitely a basic list of plays you draw out you want to run at the start of a game. So, but I think he obviously he's in a bad spot. I think he might be in real trouble this bye week. I think, but we'll wait and see what happens. But I think he's on pretty thin ice, so I'm sure he's a little sensitive when we talk to us a little bit.
Yeah. So just for context, usually offensive coordinators would script the first 15 plays. They would, but things happen like Getsy's talked about. There's penalties or sacks, so you go off the script. Let's say if you're a third long situation and the next play in your script is like a first down type of call, then you obviously are going to go off the script, but then you go back on the script when you have a chance. So I think it's semantics to argue that yes, obviously sometimes you have to go off the script. You can't just stick to the first 15 forever, but usually you have a bit of an advantage with the scripted plays because you're mixing things up a lot. You're changing formations, you're using shifts and motions. When you're writing these first 15, you want to make sure you're really testing the defense and trying a bunch of new things out, which is why usually first 15 looks like there's a lot of energy. You're moving the ball, and also the offense gets to practice the first 15. So you go out to practice, you're practicing the first 15, what to do, what to expect. And especially if you have a good scout on a defense and you think you know what they're doing, then the first 15 is usually pretty good. But then after the first 15, guys are making adjustments, defenses are making adjustments, and then it's up to you to adjust. And obviously, the Raiders have not adjusted very well when they're off that script.
Oh, I mean, and also bottom line is they can't run the ball, so they tried to adjust and when teams. I don't think it takes them a drive to realize that hey, these guys can't run the ball. Let's gang up on the quarterback and the receivers. But even that first drive today, I think Madison's first 3 carries for 17 yards. After that, they had nothing. They had 43 yards the rest of the day on 18 carries. So it's a cliche. You can't win if you can't run the ball, and they can't stop the run either. So if you can't run the ball and you can't stop the run, that's when you lose 5 straight games.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Tip.
then coming into the game, the Bengals were the worst team in defensive success rate against a run. So if you can't run the ball against the Bengals, you're going to have a tough time running the ball on anyone.
Yeah, I mean they rushed for 60 yards, and this one they limited to 2.9 yards per carry. That's pretty terrible, but it's kind of been the norm for them, as crazy as that sounds. And Alexander Madison, clearly he's not a lead back, but it doesn't look like Zamir White is either. And of course, the offensive line issues are a big part of it. I mean, they had 4 different offensive line combinations in this game alone, and they already came in without starting center Andre James and Dylan Parham, usually a starter. He was coming off the bench. I think he's still recovering a bit from that foot injury, and so they were already shorthanded. And then you go down another couple steps, even against one of the worst Russian defenses in the league. Like you're probably not going to have that much success, and so. But they just don't have the few teams are built to have a lot of offensive success when you're averaging like 2 yards a carry. I mean, not that many teams are built that way, but especially for one that has a lack of an answer at quarterback. I mean, Gardner Minshew clearly isn't the guy. He got benched today for the second time in the first 9 games of the season. This time it was for Desmond Ritter, who didn't look any better. I think they were talking about that as the game played out, but he doesn't look like he's the answer either. So they don't have a quarterback and they can't run the ball. And so, I understand criticisms of Gesicki, but he's kind of working with a shitty hand.
Yeah, the left tackle situation was really bad today. I think Colton Miller left the game early, and then, as you mentioned, Andres Pete struggled, and then he got injured, and then Thayer Munford had to play. And Munford actually, his best play has come at left tackle in the past, but he just did not look like he was ready to play left tackle today. And anytime it looked like the offense had something going, there was a big pressure coming from the left side that would cause a sack. And one of Desmond Ritter's big problems coming from Atlanta was just fumbling the ball, and we saw that today. He's still fumbling the ball. I was very surprised that they would bench Gardner Minshew for Desmond Ritter, considering that Ritter just joined the team not too long ago. And I thought he was mostly, maybe I'm just used to his play by now, but I just thought like he was mostly fine today. And I was surprised they pulled the plug on Minshew that early.
Yeah, I mean, the first time he got benched, it was more understandable. I think against the game against the Broncos. I mean, he had the pick six that swung the game, and then had a really bad interception later on in the game before he got benched for O'Connell. But this game, like, he wasn't playing well. I think he was 10 of 17 for like 130-ish yards or something like that. But he hadn't, he didn't have a touchdown, but he hadn't thrown an interception either. He was like okay, I guess. But I think it was more about the situation. I mean, they were down 31-10. The offense wasn't doing anything. I think he was just desperate to try to find some type of a spark on offense. And so he just threw Ritter out there. It didn't work, obviously, but I guess you have to try something at that point in the game.
Well, I do think maybe that last touchdown in garbage time to Brock Bowers probably was enough to give him a start the next game after the bye week is my guess. I mean, I think because they can say, yeah, he came in, was rusted. I think it was first 4 for 0 yards, but he got a little better as the game went on, took some hits. And I think you saw the ideal scenario where he uses his ability to get out of the pocket, kind of makes sense of play, throws up the block, touchdown. Again, it's garbage time, but this team needs something to build on, however small, and that could be it as far as the bye week goes. I think they'll make that change. I think they're kind of, like you said, at this point they know what they have with Gardner Minshew. They give him several chances, and I think they'll probably realize whatever reason it's not working out. And then Aiden O'Connell's back, I think, in 2 or 3 weeks, so they can revisit that. But I do think in the meantime, I think it's going to be definitely against the Dolphins when they come back after the bye week.
Yeah, let's talk about the defense. The defense obviously gave up 41 points. It wasn't all on them. I mean, a lot of 3-and-outs, turnover right after halftime was big as well, and it set them up for a big touchdown. But kind of rewatching the game, obviously Robert Spillane was not 100% or not even close to 100%. He was a true game time decision today, and he was he just couldn't move. And I'm not putting all the blame on him, but a lot of those passes that were coming up the middle of the field, usually he's pretty good in pass coverage, and he just did not look the same today. And Mike Gesicki just kind of feasted down the middle of the field today.
I also wonder. Adam Butler went down early on. He came back in, but they had no pass rush. Even Max. I mean, except for that one play where he had a late hit, but from the first, I think the first quarter and a half, because the Bengals scored, they got 4 of their first 5 possessions, take away the kneel down at the end of the first half. So they had plenty of time. Burrow was slicing and dicing, even without T. Higgins, who was hurt. So I think the lack of a pass rush to me was pretty glaring today.
Yeah, I mean, I do think Joe Burrow, and we mentioned this before in the preview, Joe Burrow is playing at such a high level right now. Like, it's just a great combination of getting rid of the ball quickly on time, and then when he needs to create a play, he can create a play. Because even when the pressure did get to him, he was getting, he was making some Houdini escapes and getting outside and making these great throws out the pocket. A lot of the big plays for the Bengals came on extended plays when Burrow got outside the pocket. So, it's difficult right now when you're running to a quarterback that's playing at the level of Joe Burrow. Sometimes when you play a quarterback like that, you have to be able to match on offense, and the Raiders just weren't anywhere close to matching the level of play on offense.
Yeah, I mean, and it was obviously he has Jamar Chase, and he's a great player, but I mean, they were doing damage with just like some guys out there today. I mean, Chase Brown, I don't know if he's really a household name at this point, but he ran for like 120 yards and had like another 50 yards or so through the air. And then, you mentioned Gesicki, but they had like 3 or 4 tight ends that were getting active. And some guy, who's the Ivy League guy? What's his name? Ishabas?
Savage, I said.
Yeah, whatever his name is, he had a touchdown. Like he was just
He's a
throwing
receiver, though. He's a receiver.
he was throwing to whoever, basically. So like
He's like
I
a
think
tight end. He's like a tight end type
yeah.
receiver. He's a big guy.
Yeah, so I mean, Burrow was just playing his ass off today. Some of those plays, like you said, Ted, it's like kind of what can you do? And for the defense, I mean, they're in a tough position. Obviously, they've been hurt by injuries this year, but they also have an offense that can't run the ball and also can't really throw the ball that well. And so it's a lot of 3 and outs, it's a lot of quick drives. They turn the ball over a lot and put them in disadvantageous positions. And so, you know, it's just they're still not playing well. There's some missed tackles, some blown assignments, some bad coverage and whatnot. But it's kind of hard for me to harp on the defense too much given the circumstances.
Yeah, I think the defense over the course of the year has kind of made some plays. They've had a lot of injuries, obviously. They kind of rallied. And today was kind of like, I think it just broke. And today, they probably had nothing left. They're probably looking towards a bye out of the side of their eye. And Joe Burrow's dealing and just kind of got out of hand. And they just couldn't, like I said, if you can't get any pass rush, it's going to be a long hard day. Plus, like you mentioned, Chase Brown was like Todd Gurley out there. Chase Brown couldn't be stopped. So I think, actually, it's funny. The Bengals actually, I was looking at some of the quotes after the game. They were mad. They thought they left a lot of points on the board. They think they didn't play very well offensively. So they actually left that game thinking that they actually lost a lot of points. They wasted a lot of opportunities to score points today.
Well, I mean, they scored 41 points, so.
Burrow had 5 touchdowns. He's mad. He's like,
Yeah.
we had 5? Come on, man. Should have had 8.
Yeah, well, for the Raider fans that are pining for Shadir Sanders, I think, if to me, like the high end comp for Sanders is Joe Burrow, a guy that doesn't have a very strong arm, but very accurate, great in a quick game, and is able to escape and make plays out the pocket when you can. Obviously, he's not big as Joe Burrow, and I don't think he's quite the athlete that Joe Burrow is. Joe Burrow is like, people underestimate how athletic he's really athletic. But he's like I wouldn't say poor man's Joe Burrow, but like Joe Burrow light. If you're into comparisons.
I'm sure Raider fans will take that. I think if you are a Raider fan looking towards a draft, I guess the good news is now they're tied for last place. There's 7 teams now with a 2-7 record, and the Raiders are one of them. There's actually 2 teams also 2-6, but so it's a big scrum at the bottom of the standings for that top pick. So if that's what you're looking for, then maybe there's reason for some optimism, I guess, after today's game.
Yeah, it's good and bad news because like we're tied for the worst record in the NFL, but there's also like a ton of shitty teams in the NFL this year. I mean, there's 9 teams that have 2 or fewer wins, and so it's going to be a highly contested race for that number 1 overall pick, and just the worst picks, the highest picks in the league in general. So Nothing's guaranteed yet. As we mentioned, they're going into a bye week, so they have an opportunity to reset, check on their health, see who's getting better, potentially make some changes, and then come back against the Dolphins, who I think are also 2-6.
Yeah.
I want to say. And in Miami coming out of the bye. They went toe to toe with the Bills today, so that might be another team kind of similar to the Bengals that maybe aren't as bad as their record reflects. So, but that's down the line. But today, as you said, Vic, I think this one just got away from them. They didn't really have anything to punch back with. Between the game getting out of hand, how well Burrow was playing, and then all the injuries really stacking up on him. And just in terms of the injuries, well, we didn't really have anything after the game in terms of updates. Colton Miller, we mentioned Pete, Whitehair. Nate Hobbs also went down with an ankle injury and got knocked out of the game. Obviously, he's one of the key pieces of the defense, so that'd be a huge loss if he misses any time moving forward. But luckily for them, they're going into a bye week, so they'll have some time to get some guys back healthy.
Tashan did notice that Colton Miller was wearing a boot in the locker room, so who knows what that means. But it was weird, I guess. They had 5 guys who had ankle injuries today. That's kind of a crazy, weird coincidence. And then Hobbs kind of blamed the turf. They said that, I was kind of curious. Obviously, the Bengals didn't have any ankle injuries, but I guess he said that the Bengals are more used to the turf than the Raiders were, so I guess their ankles were tested. But 5 ankle injuries is a lot for one game for sure.
Yep. So Raiders lose, similar script, a lot of injuries, and just kind of ran into a buzzsaw in Cincinnati. And like Coach Antonio Pierce said, it's a bad day at the office. So let's get to questions. All right, Sam the Man, who also donated 2 questions, asks, where are we and draft order Saints and Jacks will beat us? So looking at
they're tied for 6.
Yeah.
I believe right now.
Yeah.
So
according to Tankathon, they have the 6th pick. I don't know why, but they would be ahead of the Giants, who are also 2-7. So they would be at pick 6 if the season ended today.
Tankathon, is that a website?
Yes.
Yeah, check it out.
Pretty useful, man.
Put that on your favorites list, Raider fans. Tankathon. All right.
Yeah, but I mean, they do, obviously they played some of these other teams that do have 2 wins. The Browns, they beat them, so that's why the Browns are ahead of them. They lost to the Panthers, but it's a lot of tiebreakers that get involved. It goes to your conference record and all that shit. So again, we're very many weeks away from all that shit getting cleared up, but they are one of the worst teams in the league, which is again a bad thing, but it could be a good thing depending on how you look at it. So. There you go.
And just looking at the list, number 1 right now, New England. They won't be drafting a quarterback. New Orleans, number 2. Depending on how Spencer Rattler plays, maybe
he stinks. They need a quarterback.
Well, they have Derek Carr. They still have Derek Carr.
He also is not playing well. So I almost said stinks, but I didn't say stinks. But they need a quarterback and a coach.
Okay. And number 3, Carolina. Bryce Young's been playing playing better. He's been playing better. He beat Derek Carr today. So,
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it. I don't know how great these quarterbacks are in this draft class. So, like, some of these teams that they already have kind of an answer on the roster, maybe they don't force it. Like, in the Panthers, like, they're so bad, like, everywhere else. Like, they could use so many positions. The Browns, though, like, especially coming off of
they're stuck with that Deshaun Watson contract, though.
Yeah, but him coming off of popping his Achilles and also just how he's looked, like you can have him on a roster. That doesn't mean he has to be the starter anymore. So I think that's another team that could be.
They take the insurance buyout, who knows? But I can't imagine they bring him back. But I mean, they could trade him. I guess trade him in the first pick for something.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is the Raiders are going to have to probably trade up a few picks to get the quarterback they want, but we'll see.
I mean, shit, they right there right now. So I mean, we'll see.
Yeah,
Depends if they can win another game or not. We'll see.
Because what if New England puts the pick for sale and then they you have to compete with another team with the number 1 pick. So.
There's just too much undetermined at this point. We got to see.
Yeah, that's right. Plus, right now, at least again, it's so early, but there's not one clear-cut best guy. I don't think. I mean, there's more probably up there, but I don't know if there's one guy you would say that's the guy we have to get. So we'll see.
All right. Next question from Jorge Meza. Is this team being exposed for not being prepared to play outside of 12 personnel?
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if 12 personnel would have saved them because they can't run the ball. And if you can't run the ball, then 12 personnel just becomes 11 personnel. And that's what happened first couple games of the season. Teams were just playing them with Brock Bowers on the field as if he was another receiver. And the Raiders weren't able to punish him for it. And it didn't really work out outside of that Ravens win in week 2. And obviously Michael Mayer, he's been away from the team for quite some time now due to personal reasons. And he's on the non-football illness list right now. He's a guy that I believe he'll be eligible to potentially return from that after the bye. We're not 100% certain if he will. There's no guarantee there. But there is, a chance he could potentially be back this season. But clearly, due to multiple reasons, whether it was them not being able to run the ball or, Michael Mayer's personal issues, that whole 12 personnel thing that we envisioned never really materialized at any point this season. But I still don't, even if, he was on the field, it wasn't working particularly well early in the season because they couldn't run the ball. And also their quarterback play just hasn't been good this season. And so I don't think that formation or that personnel grouping really would have saved their offense this season.
Yeah, I mean, not running the ball, I think, killed 12 personnel. It also killed play action, which is a big part of their whole playbook with Gesicki, and that was why he liked Minshew, I think. Minshew was really good play action, so I think a lot of excuses for why they can't score, but those are two more of them.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully they get the offensive line healthy during the bye week and they just find a lineup that they could play for the rest of the season and build some continuity, and maybe that helps the run game. Maybe if Desmond Ritter's a starter and you have some QB option, that helps the run game. And maybe Michael Mayer comes back and then you see what he has, because you need to evaluate Michael Mayers and
can you install a read option offense in 2 weeks? A full go?
Not real. I mean, you have some plays you could run. You're not going to install like a huge package of plays, but they're running some zone read today. You could install a basic package of zone read. But I think important. Yeah, I guess the team has hinted that Michael Mayer might come back soon, so you really need to evaluate what you have in Michael Mayer.
I think he'll be back this year. If that was, no one wants to give him too many details, but I think they don't think that's unlikely. I think he'll be back at some point.
All right, next question from Christian Ponce. Thoughts on Tyree Wilson's development? What's the ceiling for you? I think I didn't get to watch him closely today. I saw him make a few tackles. I said I was very encouraged by his game against the Chiefs, which I thought was his best game of the season. I think his high-end comp would be the guy that they just played today, Trey Hendrickson, power rusher on outside, not extremely loose, at the ankles. But I mean, Trey Hendrickson is I wouldn't say he's elite, but he's a borderline elite player, like not quite there at that level. But I mean, he impacts
4 sacks today.
Did he?
I think he had 4 sacks.
Yeah.
4 sacks, really?
I think so.
Holy shit!
Wow.
Let me see.
I don't have my block.
Oh, you did. Shit. All right. I didn't realize that. Oh, yeah. 11. He has 11 sacks. Yeah, that's a little rich. That's a little rich.
Maybe another comp for Tyree. That comp's a little too. Too many times. Maybe need one a little lower, Ted. What else you got?
A little lower than Trey Hendrickson.
a little bit lower.
I'll have to come back to it.
All right, come back to it.
We can move on to the next question.
All right, next question from Randy Hongo. Is that you, Hondo? No. Mark said AP is safe. If they lose out, do you think that will still be the case?
I hate to guess that they're going to lose out. You never know with Mark Davis. I think he really wants to bring Antonio Pierce back. Losing out, I don't know. I think he'll be fine. You can use the injuries and the quarterback thing as reasons to why things fell apart. But He was really mad today. I saw him lock him today. He had the red face going, so he's not happy. I can't imagine what he'd be like if they lost the rest of their games. But I think, like I said, I think he really wants to bring Antonio back next year.
Yeah, I think he does too. But losing out that'd be tough. That'd be tough, especially if they're losing out like this and how they've been losing out during this losing streak. Like it hasn't been like competitive losses. It's not like that Lions team from a couple years back under Dan Campbell where they were shitty, but they were like competitive. Like it's not like that. Like they're getting their ass kicked week after week, and so I'm not so sure that they would make it through if that was the case.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say I thought the team was playing pretty hard until this game. I got to rewatch the game, but I thought the effort was there at the very least. But I mean, the game management issues is just like every single game. There's game
Not today,
management issues.
right? Not today.
The end of the first half, but I think that was more play calling than anything. But yeah.
It's tough.
All right, Trip asks, who also donated $2, what is the chance that they fire AP in the bye week? We kind of talked about this, but all right, put a percentage on it.
I hate to say 0 because you never say 0, but I'm gonna say 0.1%.
Yeah, I'll say 0%. I don't think this is it's not last year. I know Antonio kind of joked about it during his press conference on Friday about making sure his phone didn't ring on Halloween because that's when Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler got canned last year. But I don't foresee that happening again. Will anybody get fired during the bye week? I think that's a different question, and we'll see. But I don't think Antonio Pierce is going to be one of them.
Man, Antonio Pierce been a joker lately, man.
He's trying to keep things as light as possible, but it's been tough.
All right. Next question from Jordan. When are the Raiders going to re-sign Moehrig?
Trayvon Moehrig, I think they like him. I think he's gotten better, especially when they're using him in the box more often. I don't think he played that great today. One of his better games today, but I think he's on a short list of guys to bring back. Tom Telesco seems like there's no rush. He'll wait till the year's over at this point. But I do think they like him. I think the new staff he's kind of grown on the staff. I think they got him in, but I think he'll be back.
Yeah, I don't see them making any like in-season extensions. I mean, they really have no reason to at this point. But I have to imagine if he keeps playing at the level that he's been playing as of late, that he'd be somebody they want to bring back in the offseason. As we talked about, they have a ton of cap space. They do have a bunch of guys that are hitting free agency. But I do think that Moehrig will be a guy that they will want to bring back.
Yeah, I think Moehrig's been playing a lot better since they moved him closer to the line of scrimmage. Like he's making a lot of plays in the backfield. He's blowing guys up in the backfield too. Like, whenever he's pass rushing, he's blowing up running backs. Against the run, he's blowing up lead blockers. So I think moving him towards the line of scrimmage was a good move, and it's pretty nice seeing him make plays. So I think he'll be one of the young guys that the Raiders do try to bring back. They have a lot of cap room next year. And I think they would want to bring back some of these younger defensive players if they really believe that, as you guys reported, they believe that they're not really in for a huge rebuild. More like if they get the offseason right, then they might be able to be competitive, especially if they get a quarterback. All right, last question from East Bay Raider Gray. What is the likelihood that the Raiders make a run at Ben Johnson for head coach during the offseason? I think it's going to be tough. I mean, even if they fire AP, do you think it's tough for them to attract some of the top tier coaching candidates out there?
I think they have to have a clear path to a top quarterback for someone like Ben Johnson to come here. And I think he'll be in high demand. He's going to cost a lot of money, which Mark Davis has got plenty of money now, so that probably wouldn't be a deal breaker. But I do think they have to have a clear path to a quarterback where he'd want to come here. I don't think he's going to come here and say, we'll see what happens. I think he will go somewhere where he knows who his guy will be next year.
Yeah, I think that the quarterback piece of it is huge, but also this, as we talked about, this roster overall needs a lot of work. Like it's not just quarterback. Like they need I mean, you could say offensive line, defensive line, running back, receiver, depending on who they don't bring back in free agency, could have some other positions in the mix as well. So this team is not like a couple steps away from contending. I don't think this is like a Washington Commanders type of situation where they just do a 1 year flip. But I do think something plays into that of like if you're too impulsive as an owner and you just fire guys willy nilly, like especially if you're a guy that's been picky like Ben Johnson. I mean, he's passed on, I would say, multiple head coaching jobs at this point. At the last couple of off seasons, like he's not going to be in a rush to go to a place where you think he might get fired in a year or two. And so I think that's kind of part of the reason why Mark Davis is trying to be patient. But there's ways you can get around that, if you really want to, whether it's paying a guy a lot of fucking money or giving him a lot of guaranteed years. You can kind of work around that. But I do think, how easily they can get a quarterback or not, and then the rest of the roster, what improvements they can make in the offseason, I think that's going to play a big role. But we also have to see if Antonio Pierce even gets fired, which isn't guaranteed.
Yeah. And you guys are saying you think it's unlikely that AP gets fired after this year.
At this point, I would say it's more likely he's back for year two.
Yeah, the only reason I think we both paused that one question was they said they were going to lose the rest of their games. So if that happens, who the hell knows? But I think other than that, I think he has enough of I don't use excuses, but reasons why things didn't go well this year. So I think he can still build on the positives. And like he says, he thinks the culture here is set. It's just a matter of having the pieces in the roster and the quarterback, honestly.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is all we have for you guys today. Stay up, Raider fans. If you're rooting for a tank, where the Raiders are another step closer to a top 5 pick, maybe to get that quarterback that's been so elusive for this team. Hopefully they have some better efforts and don't get blown out by 17 points every week. But hopefully they have elegant tank coming up, and this next week we'll talk. It's a bye week, but we'll stop the podcast this Friday, so we'll talk to you guys Friday.
Yeah, take care, guys. Adios.
All right, so peace.